Well, right off the bat, I'm in trouble. Pastor Andy came up before and said, when you pray, make sure you let the kids know they need to go to kids' church now. Pastor Andy's our family pastor. Are all the kids to church that are going to kids' church? Toddlers only.
Big kids stay here. Yes. Big kids stay here.
Yes, Dad, she's sure. Good morning. My name's Tony, and I am the lead pastor here at Gateway. Wow, I have been looking forward to this day for a long time, and I know many of you have as well. I love that you've joined us. I love that I see new faces and people come to celebrate with us. I just want you to know that you are welcome. You belong here today. All of you online, we are so happy that you joined us. We know we have several that joined us online today and couldn't be here. Welcome. Sorry you didn't get to experience the confetti, but it was fun. It's still fun. Look at this. Boy, the staff's going to have fun cleaning this up this week. Well, I want to thank Pastor Tim Kellerman for being here to celebrate this day with us. Pastor Tim came to us a little over 2 years ago as our new district superintendent, and he has become a friend and a leader on our district. And if you wonder what a district superintendent is, just call him the bishop afterwards, and he'll like that. He's sort of a bishop, you know. He's a pastor of pastors in churches, and he's got about 75 now, 75 churches in the Northeast Indiana district that he leads, and he is doing an incredible job bringing vision. He's a man of prayer, inspires his pastors and churches to prayer, and I'm just glad that he's here today. I also want to thank all of you that have been part of Gateway in one way or another through the years, whether past or present. Each of you, listen, each of you, whether you still attend or you don't, you're like a thread that has been woven into the fabric of this church. You can't remove it. You're part of it, and we're so glad. I am grateful for you, and I'm thankful that you have been a part of this church. And to you who have never been to Gateway, welcome. This is Gateway. I hope that you are shocked today. I like to shock people. I'm a little bit of a pastor shock jock. I like people to walk away and say, wow, I didn't think church was anything like that. I like that. I hope you feel that way today. I hope you experience that. Each of you, whether you have never been here before, you've attended before, all of that, welcome. So glad that you're here. There's a good chance as well that you don't even go to church, those of you that don't attend. I just want you to know that I hope that we inspire you today by this message, that you can be a part of this church, that you belong in community. You belong in God's community because God loves you, and so do we. And so I'm hoping that, you didn't just come for the chicken dinner. Well, that's okay if you just came for the chicken dinner. We're just glad that you're here today. Today I want to talk to the church. So if you're not part of the church, you're off the hook. But I am hoping that through this message that you see something. Maybe you grew up with an idea of church or Christianity or religion, and maybe you have in your mind a certain way that things are. I want you to hear this morning the passion and vision that we have in this church and the kind of church we want to be. If you haven't been to church and you don't believe in Jesus, that's okay. I'm glad that you're here. I'm hoping that this is an inspiration to you and that you would leave this place and say, I think I could belong to a church like that. But before I get too far down the road into my message, there's something you need to know about me right off the bat, right up front. It's this: I will never, ever, ever apologize for the message of the gospel. Never. I'll never apologize because it is our hope in God. It is this message that God loved us so much that He sent His only Son to us so that we wouldn't perish, so that we could be in the house of God and be forgiven and be a part of His family, that God would adopt us through. This is an incredible message that God loves us. And here's the great thing: you don't have to clean your life up to be a part. You don't have to earn your way into this community. You don't have to impress God in any which way that you could imagine. God simply loves you. The work has been done through Jesus Christ, and all we have to do is accept that. I'll never apologize for that message, but I will apologize for the way that the church has gotten it wrong for many of you. I will. Some of you have been hurt by a church. You've even walked away, and I don't blame you. There was a day and a time when I wanted to walk away too. But I will say this: nobody's perfect. No matter where you go and what group you belong to, there will always be hypocrites. There will always be things that you don't like about it. But I do apologize that Christians have gotten it wrong on so many things. But I will say that most of the Christians I know, their hearts are in the right place. But we have a tendency to become like the Pharisees of Jesus' day. The Pharisees were the religious leaders. They were the people on the inside, not the outside. And we tend to get lost in the way of the Pharisees. What is the way of the Pharisees? The zeal for purity. The zeal to keep everything clean. And we miss the point of it all. The church for so long has gotten so passionate about purity that it's lost its holiness. We get confused and we think that purity is holiness, but it's not. Now I'm talking to the church folk. Church folk. Holiness is not purity. The Pharisees thought that Jesus was impure because he let a woman wash his feet with hair. That broke a purity rule. I make my wife do that all the time. I'm kidding. And if you know my wife, you're like, yeah, he's a liar. The Pharisees so stuck in their purity rules and to keep everything clean and pure on the outside that they hated that Jesus ate and drank with sinners, tax collectors. His disciples would walk through the fields on the Sabbath and pick grain and eat it, and they were freaked out by it. Purity rules exist in the church. And sometimes we forget that that's not the point. That's not the point. I grew up in a church where we had all kinds of purity rules. Women didn't wear earrings or pants. Imagine that. In my lifetime, we didn't play with face cards. We didn't go to dances. We didn't go to movies. We didn't get tattoos. And the list goes on. We didn't drink, chew, and smoke and date girls who do, right? We were so focused on the purity that we lost our holiness. I remember as a kid, my parents turned to the dark side and we got our very first TV. They couldn't splurge for the brand new 20-inch TV. They got the 12. And the kids right now are going, what? I got an 89-inch TV on my wall, man. Holiness is not purity. You want to know what holiness is? Love. Simple as that. Holiness is love. Jesus wasn't holy because he was clean on the outside. Jesus was holy because his heart burned with love for the lost. He was holy because his heart burned for those who were far from God, and he would break purity rules to go after them. Jesus loved the prostitute, the tax collector, an angry fisherman, the sick and the outcast, the poor and the destitute. Those who were on the fringe of society, Jesus loved them. He wasn't all about the outward purity. He was all about the inward love that he had for people. So I have a dream, a vision, that Gateway Church would be a different church than I grew up with. A different church that isn't so focused on keeping ourselves pure on the outside, but a people who would be purified in the heart by the Holy Spirit to be love to their community. I have a burning in my heart that we would be a holiness church, not by association or name, but a church that loves and takes risks for God and the kingdom. I want to build a church full of people whose hearts are on fire for those who are not in the church as much as it is for those who are outside the church. I want to be a church that is more focused on reaching the outsider than keeping the insider. And if you're an insider right now, that by no means we don't love you. It just means we got more important things to do. When I have someone who is really struggling with this stuff, someone typically who grew up in the church, I like to say this to them. It's like this. Jesus never called me to be a prosecutor or a defense attorney. He called me to be a witness. Witnesses are different. When Christians become prosecutors, they get all about the law. They demand that the law be kept, right? They judge and they condemn and they look at people outside and say, why can't you be like us? Why can't you be like me? And we get all into the law and keeping fundamentalism and legalism and all of that stuff. When Christians become defense attorneys, and we're seeing it right now, they go on the defense. They feel like they have to defend God or Jesus or the church, or they feel like they have to defend the Bible. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, I don't think Jesus called us to defend anything. Jesus called us to be a witness. Prosecutors and defense attorneys have to win an argument. We don't have to win anything. We are simply here as witnesses. What do witnesses do? Let me tell you what I've seen and what I've heard. Let me tell you, once I was blind, but now I see. Once I was deaf, but now I hear. I was lost, but now I'm found. That's all witnesses do. You know all that stuff over there and the culture things and all that's going on? I'm not sure about that. Let me just tell you what Jesus has done for me. Let me tell you what my life was like before I met Jesus, and let me tell you what it's like now. Jesus has made all the difference in my life. That's what a witness does. I want us to be witnesses to God and Jesus and the church and all those things, not defense attorneys and prosecutors. Witnesses are different. Prosecutors collect evidence to win an argument. Defense attorneys collect arguments to win evidence to win an argument. We don't need to win a thing. We simply have to tell the world what Jesus has done for me. How's your testimony? What has he done for you recently? Listen, church, we can continue to engage in the culture wars. We can collect all of our evidence, look up all of our scriptures. We can go stand down in the corner and tell the pride parade that they're going to hell or whatever you want to do. That's wrong. That never won anybody. You can join the political party, you know, the one that's going to save America, right? And we might even win some battles and win some arguments, but let me tell you something. We're losing a generation. Something needs to change. Last week I was reading on the Ohio State University website, and then half of you just turned me off. I understand. Can anything good come from the Ohio State University website? Yes, it did. I was reading this article about the greatest innovations in the last 1,000 years. And they listed them all, and I just want to share the top three. And these are great innovations. The first one is this, the printing press. In 1450, Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press. And you think, okay, what's the big deal about that? Let me tell you, the world didn't read and write. There was nothing to read. Unless you were wealthy or high up or some kind of, king or something like, you just didn't have books laying around your house. The printing press raised the literacy rate in the world drastically. It changed the world. You might even say that it was the beginning of the information boom. In 1879, Thomas Edison invented the electric lights, changed the way people lived. No longer did they live by candlelight or oil lamps. And even today, the LED light and its innovations, it's continually improving our lives. Light. In 1885, it was not Henry Ford, it was Carl Benz who invented the automobile. We know what the automobile did for us, right? When I look at these innovations and these inventions that these men and women created, something stood out to me. I thought to myself, wait a minute. These people had an incredible way to look at something that was a common method that people used every day. And they were able to look past that method and look at the why. Why do we need light? Why do we need to travel? Why do we need to read and write? And they didn't get focused on their method. Instead, they were able to come up with new and better methods, but they didn't leave their mission. Someone once asked Henry Ford why he built cars, and he said, well, it's like this. If I just gave people what they wanted, I would be building faster horses. The world changes. People change. Technology changes. Organizations change. Families change. Jobs change. The economy, it changes all the time, right? Culture changes. It used to be 40 years ago in my lifetime, the church actually had some authority in our culture. The Bible had authority. Christianity was a majority religion. Now we're at the beginning stages of post-Christian culture. You might not have gone to church back then, but you still kind of had this respect for it. You may not have even read the Bible, but you still thought, well, that's the authoritative Word of God, even though I don't read it. But listen to me, those days, friends, are gone. And our job isn't to try to revive the authority of the church and the Bible. Our job is to reach out and introduce people to Jesus. Once they know Jesus, then the Bible makes sense. Then the Bible has authority. Those days are gone. If we, church, don't get innovative, if we don't change our methods on how we engage our culture, we won't accomplish our mission. It isn't that people aren't open to Jesus, it's just simply that our methods and our approach to the culture is falling short of what people need. See, almost everything changes, but one thing never changes: people's need for God. They might change, the way they do things change, the economy, the culture, that all changes, but nothing changes in their hearts. They need God. They need to know His love and His embrace. They need to know that there is a group of people, God's people, that they belong in. People are still hungry and lost, lonely, looking for some purpose or meaning in life. The culture might change, but our need for God is constant. So what's next for Gateway? Well, the circumstances at Gateway have changed, and so should our methods. We felt so long that we were in exile. Didn't it feel like we were in exile? I mean, every time we would look at that debt, that nut there, and it's like, holy cow, the amount of money that went to the bank every month. The things we wanted to do, but we couldn't. We seemed stuck in a place that seemed impossible. The debt was large and heavy. But that has changed now. And I ask, now what? Now what should we focus on? Now what should our thoughts and dreams be consumed about? Or is that only me that thought and dreamed about the debt? You know, the people of Israel were in exile enslaved, stuck in a place they didn't want to be. They were imprisoned, but they were not forsaken. God was with them, even in the exile. Why? Because God always has a plan for his people. God always has a purpose for his people. Even in exile, God had a mission for his people. Isaiah chapter 42, verses 5 and 9 have just stuck with me, and I wanted to share those with you today. Read along with me. God, the Lord, created the heavens and stretched them out. He created the earth and everything in it. He gives breath to everyone, life to everyone that walks the earth. And it is he who says, I, the Lord, have called you to demonstrate my righteousness. I will take you by the hand, church, and guard you. And listen, I will give you to my people, Israel, as a symbol of my covenant with them. God says, I'm going to give you, people of God, to the world as a symbol of my covenant, that I love the world. And you will be a light to guide the nations. Verse 7. You will open the eyes of the blind. You people of God, you will open the eyes of the blind. You people of God will free the captives from prison, releasing those who sit in dark dungeons. I love this part. I am the Lord. That's my name. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about, church. God says, I am the Lord and that's my name. We're going to go out and free some people from bondage. Help them see. Help free them. I am the Lord, that's my name. I will give my glory. I will not give my glory to anyone else, nor share my praise with carved idols. Here it is, verse 9. Everything I prophesied has come true. It's already happening. And now I will prophesy again. I will tell you the future before it happens. Some translations say it springs forth. It springs up. And the Hebrew word here is this idea of a seed that has been planted and dormant in the ground. And God says, you are going to spring forth and be my people to the world. Our mission has not changed since Jesus gave it to us. Our mission, and the way we like to say our mission around here at Gateway, is this. We are here to inspire every generation to follow Jesus. Simple. Simple, but not easy. We are here to inspire every generation. Why? What motivates us? What are our motives for this mission? The first thing is this. This is our core values. We have 4 core values. We have a lot of values, but there's 4 core values that just constantly come up in our staff and our people and my heart and the kind of church that I want us to be. And the first one is this. We value practical teaching. Practical. It's not to be abstract. It's not to be out there. It's not to be hard to understand. We value practical teaching because we believe teaching that is grounded in the Bible helps people live more like Jesus. Period. Pastor Brett and I constantly are planning series and messages. We seek to understand our culture. The first thing that we've decided as to be practical in our teaching is first, before we ever can tell anybody anything, we need to listen. We need to listen to our people, to our culture, what's going on in their lives. The last 2 series we did, Too Blessed to Be Stressed, and the last series that we just finished up, No Pain, No Gain, were probably some of the most asked for series that we've put out there. Many of you have come to me and say, I need the link. I can't find, how do I send? Because you're sending it to people because you know this is practical. They're not even believers, but this is something that can help their life. We want to be practical in our teaching. We're starting a starting point class. It's a small group that's 8 weeks long. We want people who are beginning to come to Jesus or want to know more about Jesus. We want to have a stress-free environment where you can ask any question that you want to ask as you delve into who Jesus is. Practical teaching is a core value. Another core value for us is meaningful relationships, because it's important that our community demonstrates the character of Jesus. I like to tell you, and if you've not been here before, but you have been, you've heard me say this a lot, holiness finds its truest expression in community. I mean, think about it. How can you know that your love gauge is off if you're not in community with somebody? How do you know that there's jealousy in your heart if you're not hanging out with people? How do you know there's resentment or anger or something, whatever's in your heart? How do you know that you have this wall between you and someone else? How do you know that? Unless you're in community. Holiness finds its expression. Love finds its expression in community. And we believe that this is a community that reflects the character, demonstrates the character of who Jesus is. We believe strongly that we must be a community of people, authentic, trustworthy, and humble, and people who seek to put others before themselves. That sounds like a great place to be, doesn't it? Not a lot of places in the world right now where people are putting one another before themselves. Amazing things happen. Miraculous things happen when people start loving one another that way. People don't want to join a church. They want to belong to a community. We might even put that out on our wall, on our bill sign, on our sign out there. Don't join a church, join a community. Come on in. We are passionate about our life groups. We now have 7 or 8 groups. It's open enrollment right now. You can click on the links that we send you every week and go out and find out what groups are available. But we need more groups. I can think right now, I've talked to Pastor Brett, our discipleship pastor. I said, Brett, we need 3 more groups, man. We need to recruit leaders. He's like, I know, it's hard to find leaders. I'm like, what? I get it. Teams ministries, those types of things. Meaningful relationships is what we are about here. The third value that we have is sacrificial hospitality. And it has to be sacrificial. Why? Because generosity reflects the heart of Jesus. We must be intentionally looking for the God-given value of each people, each person in front of us. Understanding that each person is created in the image of God. It doesn't matter what they've done or not done. They're a person, and they have needs, and we should meet them, and we should be generous to meet them, especially the ones that we look at and we don't particularly like. People don't want to be sold a relationship with Jesus. They want to be welcomed and embraced into it. We must invite people to know Jesus by our warm embrace, our welcoming environments, and our generous actions. Knocking on doors, cold call, and asking people, hey, I don't know you, but if you were to die tonight, that's not going to work anymore. We need to reach out and be warm and embracing and generous. Hospitality is the spear of the evangelism spear, is the point of the evangelism spear today. Before you invite people to church, invite them to dinner. That's a cultural thing for us here. I don't want a bunch of people out there just cold inviting people to church. That's fine. If you know somebody and you have a relationship, invite them to dinner first. Get to know them. Make friends with them. Trust me, it'll go a long way in your relationship and theirs with God. I'm excited to announce this morning that through the money that has come in, the church board has set aside a very large amount of money into a fund that we're calling it the Be Generous Project. And on September the 1st, you'll be hearing a lot more about this. One of our board members is heading up a committee and team to start taking applications for people who are really hurting financially. Whether it's something in the lines of medical bills that you don't have any control over those things. We want to help people in need because generosity reflects the heart of who Jesus is. I'm excited about that. We've talked about giving more to the homeless shelter, compassionate pregnancy center in town. Our board, I'm so proud of our board. They're praying diligently about the money. They're praying and looking for ways. Now, they move a lot slower than I would, and I guess that's probably a good thing. And I'm trying to be patient there, but they are passionate about finding the right things to do. And here's the thing that came up. We don't want to look back and be sorry for how we spent money. We don't ever want to be there again. We want to invest in the kingdom. Every dollar we get, we want the most impact in our community for God. That might be helping start new works, new churches, mission work, whatever that is. We need to be sacrificially hospitable to our world. And the last value is intentional environments. Because we want to create environments that people love. How many of you have ever gone to a restaurant and the food was absolutely incredible, but the place was dirty, smelly, and just awful? No matter how good the food is, you ain't going back, right? You're just not going back. We want to make sure that we are creating environments because environments create mood. You all heard me say a God experience often follows a good experience, right? We want people to feel warm and we want them to look at our environment and say, this is the kind of place I want to be. We're planning a massive overhaul of our children's department. Much needed. Our kids have been crammed upstairs into small classrooms and they have so much more they want to do with the kids. This is an investment in our young families with children. We want to do these things. These are our core values. These are the things that are driving our mission, our motives for the mission. But there's also these things we call life marks. How do you measure where we're at spiritually? How do you measure? And I thought about this and I said, you know what? How we used to measure spiritual growth needs to change too. There's this thing called the bounded set and the centered set. And the bounded set is kind of like, if you wonder what that is, imagine a list of checkoff boxes. And this is the way we used to measure spirituality. We would come up with a list of things that Christians should be doing and not doing, and then we just sort of check those off. Yep, you're not doing that, you're not doing. Oh yeah, you're going to church, you're reading your Bible, you're giving. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're avoiding this, you're avoiding this. And we look at those things and we look at that bound and say, oh, he's checking all the boxes. You must be really, really faithful. And anyone who's been around the church long enough knows, you all know somebody that checked off all the boxes, but they weren't anything like Jesus. Something needed to change. And so I asked our team to come up with a different way to measure spiritual growth. And they came up with this. One, first of all, we need to understand that we never reach perfection until heaven, right? But two, we need to know that even though I'm not where I want to be, I'm headed in the right direction. I'm not just checking off a box and saying, look at me, ain't I good? No, it's a humble approach to spirituality. The first one is this: cultivate. We want to ask ourselves, every person in this church, where are my habits leading me? You will not hear from here a wailing on the perceived sins of society. I will not any longer go out and pick out certain things that people do or don't do and preach on those things, because ultimately there's always something else that trips us up. We casually don't talk about those because those are back there. Let's talk about the big ones, right? We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to ask ourselves, where are my habits leading me? Are they leading me toward my wife and my kids? Are they leading me away? Are they leading me toward God and service and selflessness? Or are my habits leading me the other way? Are my habits leading me toward addictions? Then I need to change my habits. Cultivate your heart and ask yourself, what habits do you have and where are they leading you? Second question we ask is become. Am I becoming more like Jesus every day? Can I look back and see things in my life that I'm working on? I know that I failed here. I know I said something that was harsh and unlovable. I know that I need to work on this area in my life. Am I becoming more like Jesus because I'm working on this thing in my life every day and I'm trying and I'm trusting God and I'm truly digging into it and trying to be better at that? Am I allowing God to work in my life to make me more like Him? Engage. Am I meaningfully connected to my church family? Not am I going to church, but are you connected? Are you involved? Do you have friendships and relationships? Are you jumping into a life group? Are you participating in a team ministry? Are you showing up? More than just sitting in the pew, but are you connecting and serve? How am I serving my church family? Give. How am I living sacrificially? And reach. Who am I inspiring to follow Jesus? These are the 6 questions that we want to ask ourselves constantly and judge where we're at and the direction we're heading and who we're becoming more like through these questions. So we needed a strategy, a map, something simple. And it's this. The first thing is just show up. Just show up. Be one of many. Jesus' followers know God better as they worship God together. You cannot receive if you're not there. Isn't that funny? I remember in college when I would skip. I never skipped. Yeah, when I skipped a course. Not a course, but a class. I didn't skip a course. I wouldn't be here if I skipped a course. When I skipped a class, I remember it was always the day the professor decided to give a pop quiz, right? And you wondered why your grade was so bad, and he would just say, hey man, you don't show up, you don't go up. If you don't show up, you don't grow up. If you don't show up, you will miss that incredible worship set that we had this morning. You'll miss the opportunity for God to speak to you and to help you a little further along in your journey. Gateway Church is passionate to inspire and encourage you in your faith journey. Our Sunday morning worship services and our special events are designed as a launching point for you to connect with God. The second strategy is simply jump in. Show up and jump in. Don't be just one of many, but be one of a few. See the little green dot with the few blue dots? Jesus' followers grow deeper as they serve and do life together. You need to jump in. You need to step out of your comfort zone and join a life group. Be a part of a ministry team. We were made for community. Life is better together. And 3, move out. Live out. Live out. Don't move out. Live out. Jesus' followers build relationships with those far from God. We want to decentralize this church. I've told my staff, I don't want to plan a calendar where people are here all the time. I'm not going to do it. We don't need those programs. We don't need that busyness. We need people to show up on Sunday mornings, jump into a life group, and then go out into your communities, invite. I would rather you have a dinner party with your neighbors at your house than come to a church function here on some night. Does that make sense? Go out, live out your faith in your communities, in your friendships, in your clubs and organizations that you belong to. Be one. Be the one that brings somebody to God. Funny thing about visions is you can see where you want to be, but very rarely are you there. And that's hard for me. It's like traveling to the peak of a mountain. You can look up and see the top, but guess what? It's a long way up there. You see what can be. I see what can be of this church. I see the people reaching their lost friends in their life groups, not necessarily in here. I see life groups gathering and inviting their neighbors and friends, and all of this happening. I see us gathering for this incredible worship gathering together. I see people coming to Jesus, not necessarily in the old methods that we had, but people coming to Jesus through the relationships and the friendships of their neighbors and friends and family. I see that. I see us being a church that is a reaching church, not a keeping church. That people just want to be here. We don't have to coax them or convince them. They just want to be here because God's here and things are happening. I believe this is where God is calling us, to be a church that makes a difference, not a point. Be a church where people who don't attend the church would love to attend. Be about mission before method, mercy before sacrifice, people before policies, making a difference over making a point. We must become a church that isn't afraid of our culture, that runs from it, but one that opens their heart and minds and innovative new ways to engage with it. We need your help. We need you to show up, jump in, and live out. Watch this video, and our worship team's going to come.